There is a feeling most people know very well. It's the feeling of standing at the edge of a new year, quietly hoping that this time things will be different. You tell yourself that this year you'll be more disciplined, more focused, calmer, more in control of your life. And yet, somewhere beneath that hope, there is a familiar voice whispering, "I've thought this before." You've entered new years with strong intentions. You've promised yourself change, but after a few weeks, life slowly pulled you back into the same patterns, the same habits, the same reactions, the same ways of thinking. Not because you're lazy, not because you lack intelligence, but because real change demands far more than motivation alone. Most people don't fail because they don't know what to do. They fail because they don't understand what it truly takes to become a different version of themselves. We're taught to believe that change is about adding more goals, more plans, more inspiration. But rarely do we pause to ask a more important question. What needs to end for something new to begin? A new year doesn't automatically create a new life. Time has no magic power. The calendar doesn't care who you want to become. The only thing that ever makes a difference is the version of you that shows up each day. This audiobook isn't here to excite you for a moment and then leave you unchanged. It's not here to overwhelm you with theories or complicated systems. It was created for one simple purpose: to help you become a new version of yourself. Not a perfect one, but a more honest, grounded, and reliable one. You don't need to become someone else. You don't need to reinvent your entire identity overnight. You only need to become a version of yourself you can respect. A version that keeps promises even when no one is watching. A version that acts without waiting for motivation. A version that doesn't react to everything or get pulled in every direction by emotion. A version that moves calmly, deliberately, and with self-control. Right now, you might be listening in an ordinary moment. Maybe you're driving. Maybe you're lying in bed. Maybe you're sitting alone, feeling a quiet sense that something in your life needs to change. And that ordinary moment is exactly where real transformation begins. Because change doesn't start with dramatic decisions. It starts with how you think when no one is applauding, with how you behave when no one is holding you accountable, with how you choose to act when the reward is delayed and the effort feels invisible. 2026 doesn't ask you to be perfect. It asks you to be honest. Honest about what no longer works. Honest about the habits that keep pulling you backward. Honest about the version of yourself you've outgrown but keep returning to because it feels familiar. In the chapters ahead, you won't be rushed. You won't be pressured to change overnight. Instead, you'll be guided to see yourself more clearly, to understand why you act the way you do, and to realize that becoming a new version of yourself isn't about force. It's about clarity. This audiobook is meant to feel like a private conversation. No judgment, no shouting, just steady reminders, quiet truths, and moments of reflection that give you space to think instead of react. If you stay until the end, your life may not transform instantly, but the way you see yourself will begin to shift. And that shift matters more than most people realize, because once you see yourself differently, you start making different choices. Smaller choices, calmer choices, more deliberate ones. And over time, those choices shape a life that feels intentional instead of accidental. This year, you don't need to announce your goals to the world. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You only need one quiet commitment to yourself. This is your reset moment. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Why most people never truly change. Most people believe they want to change, but very few truly understand what that means. At the beginning of every year, millions of people set goals. They promise themselves a better body, a calmer mind, a more disciplined life. For a short time, it feels real. There's excitement, hope, a sense of renewal. And then, slowly and almost unnoticed, everything fades. Not because people stop wanting change, but because they return to being who they've always been. Real change is uncomfortable. It asks you to let go of familiar patterns, even when those patterns are harming you. It asks you to sit with discomfort instead of escaping it. And most people aren't prepared for that level of honesty with themselves. One of the biggest reasons people never truly change is that they rely on motivation. Motivation feels powerful, but it's unstable. It comes and goes. It depends on mood, energy, and circumstances. When motivation fades, as it always does, most people stop. They assume something is wrong with them, but nothing is wrong. They were just using the wrong fuel. Another reason people fail is because they expect change to feel good right away. They believe that once they decide to become better, life should immediately feel lighter, easier, more rewarding. When it doesn't, they get discouraged. They begin to question themselves. They return to what feels comfortable. Comfort is seductive, even when it keeps you stuck. There is also a quieter reason people don't change, one that's harder to admit. Change threatens identity. When you've lived a certain way for years, your habits become part of who you think you are. Letting go of them feels like losing yourself, even if that version of you no longer serves you. So instead of changing, people adjust the story they tell themselves. I'll start next month. This isn't the right time. I just need more clarity. But clarity doesn't come before action. It comes from it. The truth is, most people don't fail at change because they lack willpower. They fail because they try to change outcomes without changing their daily behavior. They want a new life without becoming a new person in small, ordinary moments. Change doesn't happen during big decisions. It happens in quiet choices. It happens when you do what you said you would do, even when you don't feel like it. When you pause instead of reacting. When you choose consistency over intensity. And this is where many people get uncomfortable, because consistency is boring. There's no applause for it, no instant reward, no dramatic overnight transformation. It's repetitive, it's slow, and it requires patience with yourself. But consistency builds something motivation never can: trust. When you keep small promises to yourself day after day, you begin to trust who you are becoming. That trust changes how you see yourself. And once your self-image shifts, your behavior follows naturally. Most people try to force change from the outside in. They focus on results, appearance, external success. But lasting change works from the inside out. It starts with identity. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your habits. If you live each day the same way you always have, no calendar date will save you. A new year doesn't erase old patterns. Only new actions do. And this is the most important realization. Change is not an event, it's a practice. It's not something you decide once, it's something you choose again and again, especially on the days when you feel tired, unmotivated, or unsure. Most people wait for proof before they commit. They wait to feel different before they act differently. But it works the other way around. You act differently first, and over time, you become someone different. This year, if you want real change, stop asking yourself how inspired you feel. Start asking how consistent you're willing to be. Stop looking for dramatic shifts. Focus on small, repeatable actions that align with the person you want to become. Because the people who truly change aren't stronger or smarter than everyone else. They simply understand one thing. They don't wait to feel ready. They become ready by doing the work. And once you understand that, change stops feeling impossible. It starts feeling inevitable. Chapter 2. The version of you that has to end. If you want a new life, something old has to end. There is no way around that truth. Most people say they want to become a new version of themselves, but what they really want is a better outcome without letting go of who they've been. They want change without loss, growth without discomfort, a new chapter without closing the previous one. And that's why nothing truly changes. Every version of you is built on habits, not just what you do, but how you think, how you react, and what you tolerate. Over time, those habits become familiar. Familiar becomes comfortable, and comfortable starts to feel like identity. You don't just say, "I do this." You begin to believe, "This is who I am." That's where change becomes difficult, because letting go of old habits doesn't feel like improvement. It feels like losing a part of yourself. You might recognize the version of you that needs to end, the one that procrastinates and then feels guilty, the one that reacts emotionally and regrets it later, the one that knows what should be done but keeps choosing what's easy instead. This version isn't evil, it isn't weak. It was built to survive a certain phase of your life. But survival and growth are not the same thing. Many people stay loyal to versions of themselves they've already outgrown, not because that version is good for them, but because it's familiar. Because change requires stepping into uncertainty, and uncertainty feels unsafe. So instead of letting go, people negotiate with their old self. "I'll change later, I'll do it slowly, I'll keep this habit, just not as much." But real change doesn't respond to negotiation, it responds to decisions. Ending an old version of yourself doesn't mean hating who you were. It means recognizing that who you were is no longer who you need to be. It's an act of respect, not rejection. You don't shame the old version. You thank it for getting you here, and then you move forward without it. This is where many people hesitate, because endings feel final. They feel heavy. They make things real. As long as you keep the old version alive, just in case, you don't have to fully commit to the new one. But commitment only works when there's no escape route. Growth requires clarity, and clarity requires separation. You can't build a disciplined life while holding on to undisciplined habits. You can't become calm while feeding constant chaos. You can't respect yourself while repeatedly breaking promises to yourself. Something has to stop. That might mean letting go of routines that numb you, letting go of people who reinforce old patterns, letting go of behaviors that keep you busy but never fulfilled. This isn't about becoming extreme. It's about becoming honest. Honest about what drains you. Honest about what distracts you. Honest about which version of you keeps showing up when things get uncomfortable. Change begins the moment you stop defending that version. The hardest part is not letting go. The hardest part is sitting in the space between who you were and who you're becoming. That space feels empty at first, quiet, uncertain, and many people rush to fill it with noise, distractions, and old habits because silence forces reflection. But that space is necessary. It's where new standards form. It's where self-respect begins to grow. It's where you learn to act without relying on the old patterns that once defined you. A new version of you doesn't appear all at once. It emerges as the old version slowly loses control. Each time you choose differently, the old version weakens. Each time you hold a boundary, the new version strengthens. This process is subtle. There's no announcement, no dramatic moment, just quieter decisions, firmer standards, and a growing sense that you're no longer willing to live the way you used to. If you want this year to be different, stop asking what you need to add. Start asking what you need to end. Because the life you want doesn't begin with more effort. It begins with letting go. And once you release the version of you that no longer fits, you create space for the one that does. Chapter 3. Stop waiting for motivation. Most people are waiting for motivation. They believe that once they feel inspired, disciplined, or confident enough, action will finally become easy. That moment rarely arrives. Motivation is unreliable. It depends on sleep, mood, stress, and circumstances you can't fully control. Some days it shows up strong, most days it doesn't, and when motivation disappears, so does progress. This is where many people get stuck. They assume that if they don't feel like doing something, they shouldn't do it. They treat motivation as permission. No motivation means no action, but the people who actually change live by a different rule. They act without waiting to feel ready. They understand a truth most people overlook. Motivation is not the cause of action, it is often the result of it. You don't feel motivated and then act. You act and motivation follows. Think about the times you felt proud of yourself. Those moments didn't come from thinking. They came from doing something difficult despite resistance, from keeping a promise when it would have been easier to break it, from showing up when you wanted to quit. Action creates momentum. Momentum creates motivation. Waiting for motivation keeps you passive. Acting without it builds strength. Another reason people rely on motivation is because they associate discipline with punishment. They believe discipline means forcing yourself through misery. But real discipline isn't harsh. It's respectful. Discipline is choosing what you want most over what you want now. It's not about doing everything perfectly. It's about doing something consistently, even when your emotions resist. Especially when your emotions resist. Your feelings are not enemies, but they are not leaders either. If you let them decide your actions, your life becomes unstable. One good day, followed by 3 unproductive ones. Progress starts and stops. Confidence rises and falls. But when action leads and feelings follow, something changes. You start proving things to yourself. You begin trusting yourself. You stop needing external encouragement. And this is where a new version of you starts to take shape. The version who doesn't need to feel motivated to act. The version who understands that resistance is normal, not a signal to stop. The version who knows discomfort is part of growth, not evidence of failure. Most people avoid discomfort at all costs. They scroll, they delay, they distract themselves, they wait for a better mood, a better time, a better version of themselves. But growth doesn't wait for comfort. It happens when you act while feeling tired, when you stay consistent while feeling bored, when you choose effort while your mind looks for excuses. This doesn't mean pushing yourself relentlessly. It means setting standards you can maintain. Small actions, repeatable actions, actions that don't depend on emotion. A short walk instead of a perfect workout. 5 focused minutes instead of an ideal schedule. 1 disciplined choice instead of a complete life overhaul. These actions may feel insignificant, but they compound over time. They reshape how you see yourself. You stop identifying as someone who tries and start identifying as someone who follows through. And once identity shifts, behavior becomes easier. The people who succeed aren't more motivated than everyone else. They're simply more committed to action than to comfort. They don't argue with themselves every day. They decide once and then they execute. They understand that the hardest part isn't doing the work. It's starting when you don't feel like it. If you want this year to be different, stop asking yourself how motivated you feel. Ask yourself a better question. What is the smallest action I can take right now that aligns with the person I want to become? Then do it without negotiation, without drama, not because you feel inspired, but because you decided to move forward. Over time, those small actions create a rhythm. That rhythm creates stability, and that stability becomes confidence. You stop chasing motivation because you no longer need it. You become someone who acts calmly, consistently, and on purpose. And that's when real change begins. Chapter 4. Discipline is the new confidence. Confidence is often misunderstood. Most people think confidence comes from success, praise, or feeling good about themselves. They believe that once they achieve enough, confidence will naturally follow. But real confidence is quieter than that. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't depend on validation, and it doesn't disappear when things go wrong. Real confidence is built through discipline. Discipline isn't about forcing yourself to suffer. It's not about punishment or harsh control. Discipline is simply the ability to keep promises to yourself, especially when no one else is watching. Every time you say you'll do something and follow through, something changes internally. You start trusting yourself, and trust is the foundation of confidence. Most people struggle with confidence because they've broken too many promises to themselves. They tell themselves they'll start tomorrow, they'll be consistent this time, they'll stay calm next time, and when they don't, they lose faith in their own word. That loss is subtle but powerful. You might not consciously think, "I don't trust myself," but your behavior reveals it. You hesitate, you doubt, you look for reassurance, you avoid responsibility because deep down you're not sure you'll show up. Discipline repairs that. It doesn't happen overnight. It's built through small, unglamorous actions. Waking up when you said you would, finishing what you started, pausing instead of reacting, doing the work even when the outcome is uncertain. These actions may seem ordinary, but they send a clear message to your mind: I can rely on myself. And once that belief takes root, confidence becomes natural. The strongest people are rarely the loudest. They don't need to prove anything. Their confidence comes from consistency, not performance. They know who they are because they've watched themselves act with integrity over time. Discipline also creates calm. When your life lacks structure, your mind feels chaotic, decisions feel heavy, emotions feel overwhelming. You constantly negotiate with yourself, wondering what you should do next. But discipline removes that friction. When standards are clear, decisions become simple. When routines are established, effort decreases. When boundaries are respected, energy is preserved. You stop wasting mental energy arguing with yourself. You already know what needs to be done, and that clarity brings peace. Many people avoid discipline because they associate it with restriction. They think discipline limits freedom. In reality, it does the opposite. Discipline creates freedom. Freedom from emotional swings, freedom from impulsive decisions, freedom from the anxiety of inconsistency. When you're disciplined, you don't need constant motivation. You don't rely on mood. You move steadily regardless of circumstances. That steadiness is powerful. Confidence isn't about feeling fearless. It's about knowing that even when things are uncomfortable, you'll handle them, and that knowledge comes from repeated proof. Proof that you can do hard things without falling apart. You don't build that proof through intention. You build it through action. Discipline also teaches patience. It shifts your focus from immediate results to long-term growth. You stop chasing quick wins and start valuing progress that lasts. You become less reactive, more deliberate, more grounded, and over time others notice, not because you demand attention, but because your presence feels stable. If you want more confidence this year, don't chase it directly. Build it indirectly through discipline. Choose one area of your life where you've been inconsistent. Not everything, just one. Decide on a small, realistic standard. Then keep it day after day. Not perfectly, but honestly. Each time you follow through, your confidence grows quietly. No excitement, no applause, just a deeper sense of self-respect. And self-respect is the most reliable confidence you'll ever have. You don't need to feel confident to act with discipline. You act with discipline, and confidence follows. That's how a new version of you becomes solid. Not loud, not dramatic, but unshakable. Chapter 5. Learn to be alone without feeling empty. Most people are not afraid of being alone. They're afraid of what they might feel when the noise disappears. Silence exposes things we spend years avoiding: uncertainty, regret, unanswered questions. So we fill every quiet moment with distraction, music playing constantly, screens always on, conversations that never go deep, not because we enjoy the noise, but because it keeps us from sitting with ourselves. But growth requires space, and space requires silence. Being alone doesn't mean being lonely. Loneliness is the feeling of disconnection. Being alone is simply the absence of external stimulation. One is painful, the other is powerful. Most people confuse the two. They believe that if they slow down, something is wrong. If they're not constantly engaged, they're falling behind. But the truth is, the strongest people are comfortable in their own presence. They don't need constant validation or stimulation to feel whole. Learning to be alone without feeling empty is a skill, and like any skill, it develops with practice. At first it feels uncomfortable. Your mind races. You feel restless. You reach for distraction out of habit. That discomfort isn't a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign you're finally paying attention. The mind resists stillness because stillness removes escape routes. When you're alone with yourself, you can't blame others. You can't hide behind noise. You're forced to observe your thoughts instead of running from them. That observation changes things. You begin to notice patterns, emotional triggers, automatic reactions, the stories you repeat without questioning them. Awareness replaces avoidance. This is where real self-control begins. People who can be alone don't depend on others to regulate their emotions. They don't need constant reassurance. They don't chase attention to feel valuable. Their sense of stability comes from within. That stability makes relationships healthier. When you don't need others to fill a void, you connect by choice, not dependency. You show up more grounded, more present, less reactive. Being alone teaches patience. It teaches you to sit with discomfort instead of numbing it, to let emotions pass without acting on them immediately, to pause instead of reacting. And that pause is powerful. Most emotional mistakes happen because people react too quickly. They speak before thinking. They act before understanding. They seek relief instead of clarity. Stillness interrupts that pattern. When you're comfortable alone, you become less impulsive. You stop chasing stimulation. You start choosing intention. This doesn't mean isolating yourself. It means reclaiming control over your attention, choosing moments of quiet, creating space to reflect, allowing your mind to settle instead of constantly pushing it. In those quiet moments, priorities become clearer. Distractions lose their grip. You start noticing what actually matters. Many people avoid being alone because they fear emptiness, but emptiness is not something to fear. It's something to fill with purpose, not noise. Emptiness is space waiting to be shaped. When you remove constant input, you give yourself room to think, to plan, to realign. You begin to hear your own voice again, instead of the expectations and opinions of everyone else. And once you hear that voice, you stop seeking direction everywhere else. The new version of you isn't built in crowds. It's built in quiet moments when no one is watching, when you choose to stay present instead of distracted, when you sit with discomfort instead of escaping it. Those moments don't look impressive. They don't feel productive, but they create depth. Depth creates strength. If you want to grow this year, don't just add more activity, add more stillness. Schedule time to be alone without distractions. No phone, no noise, just space. At first it may feel awkward, even uncomfortable, but over time that discomfort turns into clarity. That clarity turns into confidence. You begin to trust yourself more, you become less reactive, you feel grounded instead of scattered, and most importantly, you stop feeling empty when you're alone because you're no longer avoiding yourself. You're learning to stand on your own presence. That ability changes everything. Chapter 6. Your environment is shaping you. Most people believe their problems come from a lack of willpower. They think they just need to try harder, be stronger, push more. But willpower is not the main force shaping your life. Your environment is. Your environment quietly influences how you think, how you feel, and how you act, often without you noticing. It determines what feels normal, what feels acceptable, what feels difficult or easy. If your environment constantly pulls you toward distraction, comfort, and instant gratification, discipline will always feel like a struggle, not because you're weak, but because you're swimming against the current every day. No one wins that fight for long. Your environment includes more than your physical space. It includes the people you spend time with, the content you consume, the routines you repeat, the standards you tolerate. Over time, these elements shape your behavior more powerfully than motivation ever could. Think about how your actions change depending on where you are. In some places, focus feels natural. In others, distraction feels inevitable. That difference isn't about character, it's about context. Most people underestimate this. They blame themselves for inconsistency while ignoring the conditions they're operating in. They try to build new habits in environments designed to support old ones. That's why change feels exhausting. You don't need more discipline. You need fewer obstacles. When your environment supports your intentions, good behavior becomes easier. When it works against you, even simple habits require constant effort. This is why small changes in environment can lead to massive shifts in behavior. Removing distractions, creating visual reminders, structuring your space to support focus instead of comfort. These changes don't rely on motivation, they rely on design. The people around you also matter more than you think. Not because they control you, but because behavior is contagious. Attitudes spread, standards transfer. If you're surrounded by people who normalize excuses, inconsistency will feel justified. If you're around people who value discipline and self-respect, those qualities start to feel normal. This doesn't mean cutting everyone out of your life. It means becoming honest about influence. Some environments drain you, some reinforce old versions of you, some make growth unnecessarily difficult. You don't need to fight those environments. You need to step out of them. Change becomes sustainable when you stop relying on self-control and start relying on structure. Structure reduces decision fatigue. Structure lowers temptation. Structure creates consistency without force. That might mean setting boundaries with technology, changing where and when you work, limiting exposure to content that keeps you reactive instead of reflective. These decisions aren't dramatic, but they are powerful. Many people avoid changing their environment because it feels like overkill. They believe they should be able to succeed anywhere. But success isn't about proving toughness. It's about creating conditions that allow you to function at your best. There is no virtue in unnecessary struggle. When you design your environment intentionally, your behavior begins to align naturally with your goals. You stop fighting yourself. You stop negotiating every decision. You move through your day with less resistance. And that ease is not weakness, it's intelligence. The new version of you doesn't rely on constant effort. It relies on alignment. Your surroundings begin to reflect who you're becoming, not who you used to be. This alignment creates momentum. Momentum builds confidence. Confidence reinforces identity. Over time, what once required discipline becomes routine. What once felt difficult becomes automatic. And that's when real change sticks. If you want this year to be different, don't just look inward. Look around. Ask yourself what in your environment is supporting you and what is quietly holding you back. Then make adjustments, not all at once, not perfectly, just deliberately, because when your environment changes, your behavior follows. And when your behavior follows, your life begins to move in a new direction without force, without drama, and without constant struggle. Chapter 7. Emotional control changes everything. Most people believe emotions control their lives. They think emotions are unpredictable forces that appear without warning and disappear without explanation. When emotions rise, they react. When emotions fall, they withdraw. Over time, this cycle quietly shapes their decisions, relationships, and self-image. But the truth is simpler and more uncomfortable. Emotions don't control your life. Your reaction to them does. You don't need to eliminate emotions to become strong. You don't need to suppress them or pretend they don't exist. Strength doesn't come from feeling nothing. It comes from feeling everything and choosing how to respond. Most mistakes people regret aren't made because of a lack of intelligence. They're made because of unregulated emotion. Anger that speaks too quickly, fear that hesitates too long, insecurity that seeks validation, excitement that ignores consequences. In those moments, people aren't acting, they're reacting. Reaction is automatic. Control is intentional. Emotional control doesn't mean being cold or distant. It means creating space between stimulus and response. It means not letting the first feeling decide the final action. That space is where power lives. Most people don't pause. They feel something and immediately act on it. They send the message. They raise their voice. They quit. They indulge. They escape discomfort in the fastest way possible. And later, when emotions settle, they wonder why they acted that way. Control begins with awareness. You start noticing what triggers you, certain people, certain words, certain situations. Instead of justifying your reaction, you observe it. You ask yourself why that feeling appeared and what it's trying to protect. Emotions are signals, not commands. Anger often signals a boundary being crossed. Fear signals uncertainty. Anxiety signals loss of control. Sadness signals attachment. But signals are meant to be interpreted, not blindly obeyed. People who master emotional control don't feel less. They feel deeply, but they don't let emotions drive the wheel. They listen, then decide. That decision-making process changes everything. When you don't react immediately, you regain clarity. You stop escalating situations unnecessarily. You stop creating problems that didn't need to exist. You stop burning bridges you later wish you'd kept. Control slows you down in the best way possible. It gives you time to choose the response that aligns with the person you're becoming, not the version of you that reacts out of habit. This is especially important under pressure. Pressure exposes patterns. When you're tired, stressed, or overwhelmed, your emotional habits become obvious. You either lash out, shut down, or seek distraction. Those patterns aren't flaws, they're learned responses, and learned responses can be unlearned. The key isn't to fight emotions. It's to delay action. You don't need to decide anything while emotions are high. You don't need to respond immediately. Silence is not weakness. Pausing is not avoidance. It's control. Many people fear pausing because they think it means losing momentum or appearing unsure. In reality, pausing projects strength. It shows that you're not ruled by impulse. People with emotional control feel grounded. Their presence is calm. They don't overreact. They don't explain themselves unnecessarily. They don't chase closure or validation in the heat of the moment. That calm is powerful. It changes how others interact with you. People become more careful, more respectful, more intentional, not because you demand it, but because your behavior sets a standard. Emotional control also changes how you experience life internally. When you stop reacting to every emotional spike, your mind becomes quieter, less cluttered. You stop replaying conversations. You stop overthinking scenarios that no longer matter. You stop exhausting yourself with imagined outcomes. Peace isn't the absence of problems, it's the ability to remain steady inside them. This steadiness builds resilience. You recover faster. You don't spiral as deeply. You don't let one bad moment define an entire day. Over time, you start trusting yourself more, not because you avoid emotion, but because you know you can handle it. This trust is crucial for becoming a new version of yourself. A person without emotional control is easy to manipulate. Their reactions are predictable. Their buttons are obvious. Their mood determines their behavior. A person with emotional control is free to choose silence instead of argument, free to walk away instead of proving a point, free to wait instead of rushing a decision. That freedom is rare, and it's built intentionally. You build it by practicing pause, by breathing before responding, by asking yourself one simple question in emotionally charged moments. What response would my best version choose right now? Not the fastest response, not the loudest, not the one that feels good immediately, the one that aligns with who you want to become. At first, this will feel unnatural. You'll want to react. You'll feel tension. But each time you pause and choose differently, you weaken the old pattern. And patterns weaken through repetition. Emotional control isn't formed in a single moment. It's built through hundreds of small interactions, small wins, small pauses, small decisions that quietly compound. Over time, something shifts. You stop feeling hijacked by emotion. You stop fearing difficult situations. You stop needing to defend your ego. You become composed. And composure is one of the clearest signs of inner strength. This year, if you truly want to change your life, don't try to control everything around you. Control how you respond. That alone can transform your relationships, your decisions, and your sense of self. Because when you master your emotional responses, you stop being a product of circumstances. You become the author of your behavior, and that changes everything. Chapter 8. You don't need a perfect plan. Most people delay change because they're waiting for certainty. They want a flawless plan, a clear roadmap, absolute confidence that they won't fail. Until they feel fully prepared, they stay still. And staying still feels safer than risking the wrong move. But the truth is simple. Waiting for a perfect plan is one of the most reliable ways to never begin. Perfection creates paralysis. It disguises fear as preparation. People tell themselves they're being responsible, that they're thinking things through, that they're waiting for the right time. But underneath that logic is hesitation. The fear of getting it wrong, the fear of wasting effort, the fear of proving they're not as capable as they hoped. So they wait. They wait for clarity. They wait for confidence. They wait for conditions to improve. And while they wait, time keeps moving forward without them. The people who actually change don't start with perfect plans. They start with movement. They understand that clarity is created through action, not before it. You don't need to see the entire path. You only need to see the next step. Most progress in life is built this way. One imperfect decision followed by another. One adjustment after another. Momentum comes from doing, not from thinking. When you begin, your plan will be incomplete. Some things won't work. Some choices will need correction. That isn't failure. That's feedback. But if you never start, you never receive feedback. And without feedback, improvement is impossible. Perfectionism often hides another belief. If I don't do it perfectly, it doesn't count. That belief is destructive. It turns small efforts into meaningless ones. It convinces you that partial progress is the same as no progress, and it traps you in cycles of overthinking and self-criticism. The new version of you doesn't need flawless execution. It needs consistency. Consistency beats perfection every time. 5 imperfect days in a row will change you more than one perfect day, followed by weeks of nothing. Small actions repeated regularly reshape identity. Large plans never acted on change nothing. Another reason people chase perfect plans is because they want certainty of outcome. They want reassurance that their effort will pay off. But life doesn't offer guarantees. Growth requires tolerance for uncertainty. When you accept that uncertainty is part of the process, you stop needing permission to act. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop delaying progress for the illusion of safety. You move forward knowing you'll adapt as you go. This mindset changes everything. Instead of asking, "What's the best possible plan?" you ask, "What's a reasonable step I can take today?" That question leads to action. Action builds confidence. Confidence encourages continuation. Continuation creates results. Perfect plans skip that entire process. The people who succeed aren't the ones with the most detailed strategies. They're the ones willing to adjust, to learn from mistakes, to refine their approach instead of abandoning it when things don't work immediately. They understand that progress is messy. There will be days when you feel off track, days when routines break, days when motivation disappears. That doesn't mean you failed. It means you're human. What matters isn't avoiding disruption, it's returning quickly. You don't need to restart perfectly. You just need to resume. This is where many people lose momentum. They miss one day and decide they've ruined everything. They treat interruption as failure, and because they believe failure defines them, they quit. But progress isn't fragile. Ego is. The ability to continue after imperfection is strength. When you stop demanding perfection, you free yourself to build something real. You allow growth to happen at a human pace. You stop punishing yourself for not being ideal and start respecting yourself for being persistent. The new version of you isn't created by flawless execution. It's created by showing up again after falling short, again and again. Over time, those returns compound. They build resilience. They build trust. You stop fearing mistakes because you know you can recover, and recovery matters more than avoidance. If you want to move forward this year, release the need for perfect clarity. Start with what you know. Act on what's within reach. Adjust when necessary. Progress doesn't demand certainty. It demands participation. The path becomes clearer as you walk it. This chapter isn't asking you to be careless. It's asking you to be courageous, to accept that the first version of your plan will not be the final one. And that's exactly how it should be, because life isn't built in drafts that stay on paper. It's built in revisions made through experience. Start where you are. Use what you have. Take the next step. That is enough. Chapter 9. Become someone you can respect. Respect isn't something you demand from others. It's something you earn from yourself. Most people spend years trying to appear confident, successful, or strong. They focus on how they're seen, how they're perceived, how they measure up. But very few stop to ask a quieter, more important question. Do I respect the person I become when no one is watching? That question changes everything. Self-respect isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It shows up in the choices you make when there's no reward, no recognition, and no external pressure. It lives in consistency, honesty, and restraint. You can feel when self-respect is missing. It shows up as hesitation, as guilt, as the need to over-explain yourself, as the sense that you're not fully standing behind your own life. Many people confuse self-respect with confidence, but confidence can be borrowed. It can come from success, praise, or momentum. Self-respect is built slowly and quietly through behavior. You don't gain it by repeating affirmations. You gain it by acting in ways you don't regret later. Every time you break a promise to yourself, self-respect erodes. Every time you tolerate behavior you know isn't right for you, it weakens. Not all at once, but enough to feel it. That's why so many people feel disconnected from themselves. They've learned how to function, how to cope, how to survive, but not how to live with integrity toward themselves. Becoming someone you can respect doesn't require dramatic change. It requires alignment. Alignment between what you say matters and how you actually live. You know what this feels like when it's missing. You say you value discipline, but your actions are inconsistent. You say you want peace, but you keep feeding chaos. You say you want growth, but you avoid discomfort. That gap creates tension, and tension, over time, becomes dissatisfaction. The new version of you isn't built by chasing approval. It's built by closing that gap, one decision at a time. Self-respect grows when your actions match your standards. That doesn't mean extreme rules. It means honest ones. Standards you can realistically maintain. Standards that challenge you enough to grow without breaking you. Respect yourself enough to keep promises that matter. Respect yourself enough to walk away from what drains you. Respect yourself enough to pause before reacting emotionally. Respect yourself enough to tell the truth to yourself first. These choices may feel small, but they accumulate. You start to trust yourself. You stop second-guessing every decision. You don't need constant reassurance because your behavior supports your identity. You become grounded. People who respect themselves move differently. They don't rush. They don't beg. They don't over-explain. Their calm comes from knowing they aren't betraying themselves behind closed doors. This matters most when no one is watching. Anyone can act well under observation. The real test is how you behave in private, what you do when there's no consequence, what you allow when it would be easier to ignore it. Private behavior shapes public confidence. If you want to respect yourself more, start paying attention to the moments that seem insignificant, the moments where convenience competes with integrity. Those moments matter most. You don't need to be perfect. You will fail sometimes. You will make decisions you later question. Self-respect isn't destroyed by mistakes. It's destroyed by avoidance and dishonesty. When you make a mistake, acknowledge it, adjust, move forward. That response builds more respect than pretending it never happened. Many people stay stuck because they believe respect comes after transformation. They think they'll respect themselves once they're more successful, more disciplined, more accomplished. But it works the other way around. You transform because you respect yourself enough to change. The new version of you doesn't wait to feel worthy. They act as if their time, energy, and attention already matter. That mindset changes behavior immediately. You stop wasting time on things that don't align. You stop engaging in conversations that drain you. You stop negotiating your values for comfort. And with each aligned choice, something stabilizes inside you. You don't feel the need to prove anything. You don't feel pulled in every direction. You feel centered. This is the foundation of inner strength. Not dominance, not ego, not external success, but the quiet confidence of knowing you're living in a way you can stand behind. If you want this year to be different, don't focus on becoming impressive. Focus on becoming consistent. Don't chase validation. Chase alignment. Ask yourself one simple question at the end of each day. Did I act in a way I can respect today? Not perfectly, not dramatically, honestly. Some days the answer will be yes, some days it won't. What matters is that you're willing to look. That willingness is strength. Because when you become someone you can respect, you stop running from yourself. And that's when real peace begins. Chapter 10. This time, don't go back. There is a moment in every change process that isn't talked about enough. It's not the beginning, and it's not the breakthrough. It's the quiet middle, when the excitement has faded, but the results haven't arrived yet. This is where most people turn back. Not because they failed, not because they chose the wrong path, but because the old version of life starts to feel familiar again. Familiar feels safe, even when it's limiting. By the time you reach this stage, you've already done something important. You've created distance between who you were and who you're becoming. Your thinking has shifted, your awareness has sharpened. You no longer move through life on autopilot the way you once did, and that awareness is exactly what makes this stage difficult. You can't unsee what you now understand. You can't return to ignorance, but you also haven't fully arrived at the new version of yourself yet. You're in between. That in-between space is uncomfortable. Old habits call to you. Old routines feel tempting. Old patterns offer relief without effort. They promise comfort without growth. And this is the moment where a quiet decision matters more than motivation ever did. Will you return to what's familiar, or will you continue forward without certainty? Going back is easy. It doesn't require courage. It doesn't require patience. It simply requires surrender. Continuing forward requires something else entirely. Commitment without excitement. Discipline without applause. Faith without evidence. This is where real character is built. Not when you feel inspired, not when progress is visible, but when the work feels repetitive and the payoff feels distant. The old version of you doesn't disappear suddenly. It waits. It looks for moments of weakness, stressful days, emotional dips, moments of loneliness. It doesn't attack aggressively. It whispers, "Just this once. You deserve a break. You can start again tomorrow." And those whispers sound reasonable. The difference now is that you can hear them clearly. You recognize them for what they are. Invitations to return to a life you already decided wasn't enough. This chapter isn't about forcing yourself to be strong every day. It's about remembering why you started when it would be easier to forget. You didn't begin this journey because your old life was terrible. You began because it was unfulfilled, because something inside you wanted more depth, more clarity, more self-respect. Going back doesn't erase that desire, it only delays it, and delay has a cost. Each time you knowingly return to old patterns, the gap between who you want to be and how you live becomes harder to ignore. That gap creates frustration, quiet disappointment, the feeling that you're betraying yourself. Continuing forward closes that gap, slowly, imperfectly, but honestly. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. At this stage, big efforts aren't required. What's required is steadiness, showing up in small ways, maintaining the standards you've already set, not raising them, not proving anything, just holding the line. You don't need to transform your life again. You need to protect what you've already built, protect the new awareness, protect the new habits, protect the moments where you pause instead of reacting. Protect the version of yourself that no longer wants to live unconsciously. There will be days when you slip. That's inevitable. Slipping is not the same as quitting. The danger isn't falling off. It's deciding not to get back on. When you slip, return without drama, without self-criticism, without turning one mistake into a full retreat. Progress doesn't require perfection. It requires return. Returning quickly is strength. Over time, this ability compounds. You stop fearing setbacks because you trust your ability to recover. You stop catastrophizing small missteps. You stay oriented toward forward movement, and something subtle but powerful begins to happen. The new version of you starts to feel normal. What once felt effortful becomes familiar. What once felt unnatural becomes automatic. The calm, disciplined, self-respecting version of you is no longer something you try to be. It's simply how you live. That's when going back stops being tempting. Not because the old life disappears, but because it no longer fits. This chapter isn't asking you to be relentless. It's asking you to be loyal. Loyal to the work you've done, loyal to the clarity you've gained, loyal to the standards you've chosen. Loyalty to yourself is rare, and it's built in moments like this, moments when no one is watching, moments where nothing dramatic is happening, moments where continuing quietly matters more than starting loudly. If you want this time to be different, don't romanticize the past. Remember it accurately. Remember why you wanted more. Remember how it felt to live without intention. Then choose forward again. Not with force, not with pressure, with quiet resolve. You don't need to rush. You don't need to prove anything. You just need to keep going. This time, don't go back, because the version of you you're becoming doesn't need to be chased. It needs to be protected. And the simple act of not turning back may be the most powerful decision you make all year. There is another reason people go back that often goes unnoticed. It's not weakness, it's impatience. After some time, you start asking yourself, is this really working? You've been more disciplined, more aware, more controlled, but life hasn't suddenly transformed. Problems still exist. Some days still feel heavy, and the mind starts questioning whether the effort is worth it. This is where many people misunderstand progress. Progress doesn't always feel like improvement. Sometimes it feels like resistance. Resistance shows up when your old identity and your new identity collide. The old one wants ease, the new one demands standards. That tension doesn't mean something is wrong, it means something is changing. If nothing were happening, there would be no resistance. The mistake is believing growth should feel rewarding at every step. It won't. Some phases are quiet, some are uncomfortable, some feel neutral. But neutral does not mean meaningless. This is the phase where roots grow underground. You don't see them forming, you don't feel them strengthening, but without them, nothing above ground survives. If you walk away during this stage, you don't just lose momentum, you interrupt the foundation that was being built silently. Staying doesn't require heroics, it requires patience. Patience with results, patience with yourself, patience with the process you chose before doubt appeared. Another trap at this stage is comparison. You look around and assume others are further ahead, more confident, more successful, more certain. What you don't see are their earlier chapters, their setbacks, or their periods of stagnation. Comparison creates pressure. Pressure creates impatience. Impatience creates retreat. The work you're doing now is personal. It doesn't need to be visible to be valid. It doesn't need to impress anyone to matter. This chapter is asking you to redefine success, not as constant progress, but as continuity. Success is staying when leaving would be easier. Success is repeating simple actions when novelty is gone. Success is trusting that who you're becoming matters more than how fast it shows. You don't need to feel strong every day to be strong. You don't need certainty to continue. You only need to decide that you won't abandon yourself when things feel unclear. That decision, repeated quietly, changes how you see yourself. You stop identifying as someone who quits when momentum slows. You start seeing yourself as someone who stays, and staying reshapes identity. Eventually, there comes a moment when you realize you're no longer fighting to maintain this new way of living. You're simply living it. The effort shifts. What once felt like discipline starts to feel like alignment. That moment doesn't announce itself. You notice it in how you respond, in what no longer tempts you, in what you no longer tolerate. By the time you notice it, the old version has already lost its grip. That's why this chapter matters, not because it's dramatic, but because it's decisive. If you protect this phase, if you don't rush it, abandon it, or undermine it, you give the new version of yourself time to settle in. And once it settles in, going back won't even feel like an option anymore. At this point, nothing dramatic needs to happen. No final surge of motivation, no loud promises, no announcement to the world. What matters now is quieter than that. You've spent this time listening, reflecting, and noticing patterns that once went unseen. That awareness alone has already shifted something. You're no longer moving through life blindly. You're no longer waiting for the right moment, the right feeling, or the right version of yourself to appear. You understand now that change happens when you decide to show up differently, consistently, calmly, with intention. The new version of you isn't defined by ambition, it's defined by standards. Standards for how you treat yourself, standards for how you respond emotionally, standards for what you tolerate and what you no longer do. These standards don't make your life perfect, they make it honest. There will still be difficult days, moments of doubt, periods where progress feels slow or invisible. That doesn't mean you're failing, it means you're living a real life, not a curated one. What matters is how you move through those moments now. Instead of reacting, you pause. Instead of escaping, you stay present. Instead of abandoning yourself, you return. That return is everything. You don't need to carry every lesson from this audiobook with you. You don't need to remember every idea or concept. You only need to carry one thing forward: the ability to choose differently. Different doesn't mean extreme. It means intentional. It means choosing discipline over impulse, clarity over chaos, consistency over comfort. Those choices won't always feel rewarding in the moment, but over time they build something solid, something you can stand on when life feels uncertain. You don't need to rush the process. The pressure to be someone new disappears when you realize that you're already becoming that person through your actions. Slowly, quietly, naturally, and one day you'll notice something subtle. You'll realize that you no longer think the way you used to. You no longer react the way you used to. You no longer tolerate the things that once drained you, not because you forced change, but because you grew out of the old patterns. That's how real transformation happens. This year doesn't need to be louder than the last. It doesn't need to be more impressive. It just needs to be truer. Truer to what matters to you. Truer to how you want to live. Truer to the person you respect when you're alone. Carry this version of yourself forward, not as an ideal, but as a practice. Some days you'll live up to it. Some days you won't. What matters is that you don't walk away from it when it gets difficult. You don't need to start over again. You just need to continue. Continue choosing awareness over autopilot. Continue choosing calm over reaction. Continue choosing yourself even when it's uncomfortable. If there is one final thought to hold on to, let it be this: a new year doesn't change your life. A new version of you does. And that version isn't waiting somewhere in the future. It's built through the choices you make today, quietly, deliberately, one decision at a time. Carry it forward.